Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective. Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Peter Finger, and today I'm joined by Iuri Melo. Iuri is a licensed therapist with over 20 years of experience supporting individuals and families through stress, anxiety, and relationship challenges. He's the best-selling author of Know Thyself and Mind Over Gray Matter, and a passionate advocate for mental health, fitness, and personal development. Iuri is also the co-founder of SchoolPulse, a pioneering text-based SEL platform that empowers students through proactive support, positive psychology, and meaningful connection. Above all, he's someone who deeply believes in human potential and is on a mission to help young people live boldly and intentionally. Well, we're excited to have Iuri on the show today to help us explore how SchoolPulse is reshaping student mental health by blending tech-enabled emotional support with clinical wisdom to foster engagement, autonomy, and resilience, ultimately helping students and school communities thrive. Well, Iuri, we're really excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
I'm happy to be here, Peter. Awesome.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun looking into your program, SchoolPulse, and your website does a really great job of outlining sort of the benefits as well as, some of the symptoms that you guys are combating. But I know that the inspiration or sort of the idea of SchoolPulse was a way to support teen mental health proactively. And the idea was actually in response to a tragedy in your city. Share with our listeners that story and what inspired you to co-found SchoolPulse.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I think our genesis story, in a sense, I think is quite interesting. I'll give you a little bit of a background. We honestly live in just a lovely community. Like I don't know if you're familiar with the southwest corner of Utah, and it's just lovely. It's this just high desert, lovely community. We're about an hour and 45 minutes away from Vegas, and we have about, I think, 5 or 6 high schools here. And in 2017, so about 7 years ago, I guess 8 years ago now, but we had just a real high number of student suicides. We had 7 students in our community that took their life by suicide. And a good friend of mine who is a local principal here, in fact, he was the principal where my 2 oldest girls were going to school at that time. They lost 2 students to suicide. But that poor principal, he was reeling. Just the amount of pressure that he was getting, obviously, from the community, from parents, from the district. And I remember having conversations with him where he said to me, honestly, Iuri, I feel like the only thing I have available to me is reactive. I just have literally almost wait for crisis to happen. And then I try to respond and I try to react. And so him and I honestly began to kind of have these conversations. By then I had written a couple of books. I did some presentations at schools, and him and I began to have these meetings about what could we do, right? To be a little bit more proactive, right? Instead of reactive. What could we do? We talked about creating resources or websites or apps. But ultimately, he was a busy man, and I was busy at that time kind of building my own private practice or just working my private practice. And at that point, I met with the other co-founder of SchoolPulse, Trent Staley, who's a fabulous software engineer, a true genius, who suggested he really liked this idea. He really enjoyed the idea of building tech and building it for good. And he suggested, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't create an extraordinary resource? Why don't we proactively reach out to students via text? And that was really the beginning. And at that point, we kind of created these little messages. At that point, it was all like these little canned messages. And we signed up that school and we would text these students 1 time a week. That's all it was at that point, with just a couple of little questions, and the students would respond. And at that point, we wouldn't even provide any responding back. We just wanted to see how the students were doing, provide them with these little canned responses back, and then provide the school with the pulse, right, of their student body, like how they were doing. And then a few years into it, as we kind of began to see more engagement with the students, we noticed that the students weren't just responding to these little questionnaires that we were providing, but they were chatting. They were trying to chat. And at that point, we weren't even responding, but they wanted to chat. And so that's when we kind of thought to ourselves, like, hey, what would happen if we provided people, right, to actually converse with these students back? And when that happened, man, we have just seen, I mean, anything that you can imagine, right? All the way from students who were happy and joyous and life is good and they're graduating and they went on their first date and they won the state championship or they did really well on their track meet, all the way to students who are struggling with suicidal ideation, who are self-harming, whose parents are divorcing, who've lost a grandparent, who've lost their dog, who are in the midst of school shootings, who are reporting physical and sexual abuse. And so our platform that I say is really a positive psychology service, but we are also deeply involved in the lives of these students who come to us in just the most extraordinary and beautiful ways, I tell you. And we're just honored to be a part of intervening and providing enthusiastic support and incredible resources. And so it's honestly been a joy. It's come from that backdrop of some real tragedy, but I was really fortunate to be surrounded with just awesome people that helped us to kind of just bring this idea to grow. And of course, we've now expanded, right? I mean, we love to talk to principals, we love to talk to administrators and counselors, and we basically just listen. Like, what do you need, right? What's your need? What do you feel overwhelmed about? And then we literally just deliver, right, solutions that they can plug and play and that can make real impact in the lives of their students and, of course, in the overall culture of the school. But yeah.
And I can imagine that you guys are making a real impact, even just from, your origin and those beginning steps. There was such a need for folks to find a supportive person to talk to and just to reach out. I think it's incredible that you guys were able to recognize that and build a stronger program around it, finding a way to kind of support folks and even just applaud the successes in their lives. It's difficult to be a young person. It is. I think a resource like yours can really help ground some folks into some really good skills. But what you're also doing is equipping them with positive psychology, which can really help them through some tough challenges.
Absolutely. And that really is our goal. And I wanted to just make a quick mention, just as you're talking to me, I'm kind of like thinking about it in my mind, right? Is that really is one of the really unique things about our service, right? Is that we're not technically a crisis line, right? That almost, if you can imagine kind of a fire extinguisher on the wall, right? That just kind of sits there and when an emergency breaks, right, we break the glass and then we utilize it.
Right.
Our goal is to proactively engage students, right? We engage with them twice a week. We deliver our incredible student success activities, right, which are all based on positive psychology, growth mindset, and of course, cognitive strategies that have been proven, right, that are evidence-based. And then we do these little questions and we just try to engage them with content that's not cringy, that's fun, that's relevant to them. And then we provide this support. And the cool part about that too, I mean, just speaking statistically for a second, is that 80+% of our engagement with students, even though we're available to students from 8 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week through the summer, et cetera, 80% of our engagement happens as a result of our proactive tapping them on the shoulder. Like, hey, check this out. What do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about this? Check out this quote. And they respond, and that then begins this process, right? Where we're not just this kind of foreign service that they have no idea what they're going to run into, but we're actually this familiar tool, right? That for some students have been tapping them on the shoulder in a positive and enthusiastic way for years. Like, it's remarkable, Pete.
Yeah. And again, just to echo what you're saying, I think it's so refreshing to really see a solution that is proactive at the front. On the show, we've met a lot of really smart and talented folks, and they're creating some incredible systems, but it tends to be very reactive. I'm putting myself in the shoes of the principal that can't find a solution, I can only address the crisis that's happening, right? We've got hotlines, we've got response teams, but we're also addressing people after the crisis has happened. You've created a solution that is grounded in proactive skills, and you're finding a way in order to engage with folks so that there is a trust that's being built, so that there's history, and if there's a crisis or a challenge, that there's a resource that they're familiar with.
Absolutely. And not just are we this kind of upstream solution, right? That's a term that schools will
Right.
often use, right? It's kind of this upstream approach, right? True prevention, right? But then in addition to that, right, we can also be there during those moments of challenge, right? And then we're also downstream, right? Because our service continues, right? It stays
Mhm.
connected to that individual. And that's usually what we see, right? Is students will come, they will engage with us really when they want. We don't expect students to engage with us on a weekly basis. We'll have students who will come in, they will engage with us initially, mostly kind of poking at the system and trying to find out what it's like, if it's AI or if it's real people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then sometimes students will report, a challenge or a struggle, whether they're overwhelmed or burned out or failing their classes or they didn't get picked for their school team or whatever it is. And then they can go quiet. I mean, they can go quiet for months and not say a word. And then they'll kind of peek back in like, hey, I'm having a friend that's struggling. Or, I mean, one of the texts that we just had a week ago or so, right, was a friend that came to us and who had come to us in the past. But one of their
Mhm.
friends was just struggling with suicidal ideation and they wanted resources. Like they
Mhm.
wanted our videos that we had shared with them so that they could share with their friend. So it's really powerful. I mean, I just it's just like Nobel Prize winning type stuff that happens.
Yeah.
But it's just simple, like and if we go into a little bit more detail in the like later on in our conversation about how we do that, or even some of our protocols, I think that that'll be pretty intriguing. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's do that right now. So I've actually had a chance to engage with your program, and it works just like you're talking about. I was able to receive a text message. It was like chatting with somebody. You're providing some resources, but help our listeners understand, what is School Pulse and what does the program look like?
Yeah. So School Pulse, really what we try to provide for schools, or what I say is we come to the relief of schools, right? Schools, districts, states, right, have to provide this suicide prevention material to students, right? They have to have some initiatives at the school that prevent student suicide. They have to have other initiatives that are meant to enhance or promote student wellness or student success or social and emotional learning. Whatever language they're using, schools have to have alternative ways of dealing with the disciplinary issues, right? All the way from fighting to kids who are making, discriminatory statements and during games or in the hallways, or maybe they're cheating or using
Right.
AI inappropriately. And so we've just listened to schools who tell us, right, they're overwhelmed, they're overworked, they don't have enough resources to reach out to all the students. And we've just figured out what we feel is an unbelievable way, is an easy way for us to step into a school and immediately multiply their efforts, and to
Mhm.
just immediately come and amplify the already amazing things that they're attempting to do. Like we don't come in there, we're not trying to surgically change everything that they're doing. That's not our purpose. Our goal is to just listen to what they're asking for and provide
Mhm.
solutions that are easy to apply and that deliver outcomes that they can see over time. And so
Right.
that's what we do. And we do that in a variety of ways. We kind of have this tiered system, and we use a tiered system because
Mhm.
schools use tiered systems, right? They have
Okay.
schools utilize kind of a tier one, right? Which is tier one means for the whole school, right? They have to provide a resource for everyone, right? And then tier two is kind of for small groups, maybe for students who may be struggling a little bit, and they provide these
Okay.
tier two type services to assist them. And then tier three is kind of individual support. And what we try to provide schools is to be a complete solution, right? A three-tiered solution. Schools utilize the language of like a MTSS, which is a multi-tier system of supports. And our goal is to just provide a solution at every level. And so we provide
Yes.
our tier one solution is we have this email campaign, which once again requires almost zero effort. So it's sustainable. It doesn't provide any labor on the school's part, but we provide an email campaign that goes out weekly to every student, to every parent. We believe in parent development and education as well. And we want to be totally transparent in everything we send them. And so we send that out, that goes out to all the school. And we also have some really fabulous school-based resources that allow us to kind of utilize our videos so that schools can proactively engage students with that, with the content. Of course, our tier two, and that we usually include those as part of our restorative practice, right? So this is a student that comes in to see the principal and, they went to watch a football game and they were being bad sports, or they used inappropriate language, or somebody said, hey, these kids are being bullies, or maybe they got caught smoking weed in the bathroom, whatever it is.
Oh.
And the school has to provide, right, some sort of disciplinary action to deal with this.
Mhm.
But as schools have now realized, well, they've realized it for a long time, right? That discipline is good, obviously, and it can help to correct behavior and to prevent future behavior. But ultimately, they are interested in providing alternative methods, more corrective and educational methods that not only help to correct the behavior, but that help to educate on the actual behavior we want them to do, right?
Yeah. Mhm,
And in
mhm.
addition to that, part of these interactions that we create, or part of these resources that we create for them, are meant to minimize the time that student is spending outside of class so that they can get
Yes.
back into class to really be, which is what they're there to do, right? And then, of
Yeah.
course, our tier three, our individual resource, is really what you've been playing around with, Peter, which is our ability
Yes.
to individually provide schools the moment a student opts into the service, or the schools can actually opt students in as well. The moment that the student opts in, they've literally have given that child a resource that will be proactively engaged with them the entire year, before, after school, during the breaks. Schools just don't have, they have, and in fact, I don't know if they need to, right? That's not their job particularly, but they're definitely interested in the well-being of students because their well-being is directly related to the success and their behavior at school.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you guys have done such a neat job of the delivery too. It's not like you're asking somebody to log into a program during school hours. It's delivered to their phones, which,
Yeah.
we know teenagers are engaging in those anyway. Why not give them a resource that can actually give them some positive psychology you've used, or a reflection question? I know when I first engaged, the first thing that I got was a reflection question about how I was feeling. And I thought that that was a very nice moment of my day that I could just sort of sit back and I could engage. And it was smart enough to provide a little bit more context, to provide a video. It asked even further questions to sort of probe into a little bit more, but it wasn't evasive. And I thought that the language itself was very focused for that generation, using non-gendered terms, which I think, resonates very well for that age group. So you guys have been very intentional on how you have delivered this. My question to you is, I know you're balancing human connection and technology with this as how you sort of check in with students. I want to ask you, how are you sort of crafting that therapeutic alliance? You're doing it through text, but I know there's also like a human aspect into it. How does the human play into this?
Well, this is actually really important because there are actually a couple of other services out there. And of course, artificial intelligence, I mean, it's magnificent. Like, I mean, I use it all the time. I
Yeah.
use it as a way to kind of collaborate, that I collaborate with. But when you're engaging, Peter, or any student or any parent or any staff, when they're opted into our service, obviously I create all the content actually. So I create all the texting, all the videos, all the resources. But the moment that you step in and respond and ask a question, like, you're actually not communicating with the bot. Like, this is a real person all the time, like all the time. Like, we do send out, like when we send out little questionnaires, which is just a 4-point Likert scale, right? Hey, how are you feeling today? From, really sad to really happy. And a student responds with really happy. We have a little response that comes, but then you're immediately going to be greeted by a live person. So it's not AI. Like, there's no shadows in the system here. Like, these are actual people, most of them kind of college and just beyond age. We have licensed professionals like me and trained paraprofessionals that have been doing this for a long time and who have been actively involved in not just amplifying kids' lives, but in actual interventions as well, where they've been actively involved in during some really challenging times.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
say one more quick thing specific to AI specifically. We have created an algorithm that allows us to kind of measure our success too. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
important, right? Schools have
Yes.
to see the benefit, right? It all has to be evidence-based. There has to be data. And so what we can do is we have this little algorithm that takes every text that the students send us, and that algorithm provides a sentiment score, right? So it basically takes what you just said, Peter, right? And then it just provides a little sentiment score on a scale from -9 to +9. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to measure how student sentiment is impacted when they engage with our team. And what we've seen is that when students engage, and this isn't just about our system, when students engage with somebody who is kind, enthusiastic, and gentle, their sentiment raises 40 to 60%.
Wow.
And that sentiment rise is important in two ways, right? Number one, because we know that success revolves around happiness, right? I mean, that's like one of the basic parameters of positive psychology, right? Maybe we've always thought that happiness revolves around success, but we've actually seen that when kids are happier, when their sentiment is better, they make better decisions. They're more creative. They retain information better, and their decision making is better. And they're more successful. They perform better at that level, not just in academics, but in sports and other activities as well. And so our goal, one of our goals through text, right, is to provide the service, right, with some evidence that shows that when kids engage with our team, with live caring people, that we're able to impact their mood. And when their mood is impacted in a positive way, all of these other positive things follow as well.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Whether you're a longtime or first-time listener to Behavioral Health Today, you're probably familiar with Triad, the company that brings you this podcast. But you may not know that Triad also hosts a community for current and aspiring behavioral and mental health professionals, featuring trending content and education and career resources, all for free. If you are a behavioral or mental health professional, or you're studying to become one, join more than 80,000 people on Triad by claiming your free professional account today. Visit us at hellotriad.com/BHT. That's hellotriad.com/BHT and join the Triad community today.
It's so encouraging to know that there's this much intention behind it. As humans, our basic needs are really to be felt and to be seen. And you've created a process in this whole thing to where, you are getting real engagement from folks and you're giving them engagement back. It's no wonder that you guys are seeing sentiment score improvement. And it's also, I think, an extension, a very interesting and modern example of how schools can be a very safe place for students who might not be getting the same kind of care. But this is really an extension of that foundation that we can give somebody a significant relationship, another good other for them to sort of, build their life into. And you guys are sort of extending that with this program. I see so much intentionality behind it. Yeah.
That's really a good way of putting that, Peter. The idea that we almost act as an extension, right? And that's what I always want to tell schools, right? Is we're definitely not coming in to compete with anybody, especially parents. We love parents. I'm a parent of 5, right? I got 3 teens in a sense right now, but they're in 2 older ones. But we love parents. We respect their ability to parent and to raise their children. I think all parents. And this is one of the things that I tell administrators all the time, because I think in a sense, schools have become these highly politicized environments, right? And we don't want to do anything, right, that would jeopardize that. And so what I tell administrators all the time is, we want to provide you with rich, powerful, and inspiring content that you would feel proud to share with any parent. And I think if you look through our videos, you will find that that's exactly true. We have done parent meetings throughout the country. We've met with school boards. We've met with state boards to address this very thing. And that's what we have found, is that parents have been incredibly just gracious and grateful and excited to opt their own children in to this program, and for them to participate as well. And so we've done a really hard job. We've tried really hard to provide something that is relevant and that speaks to teens, and yet that is incredibly mindful about parents and their right. And we absolutely respect that as well. It's really important for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like you guys are also giving a lot of respect to the students and the teenagers themselves. I know
Sure.
that there's intentionality between the autonomy and engagement of this program, and that you guys are sort of offering this as an invitation to interact. So I want to ask you, as you sort of have that in mind, what are some of the ways that you guys are actually encouraging students to engage, and how might you be giving them sort of the autonomy to make a choice to engage? What does that look like?
It just depends. Every school does it a little bit differently.
Mhm.
And there are even some states, and I'm going on a slight little segue here, and there are some states that don't particularly allow students to opt themselves into the service. So a parent has to opt them into the service. And so, but I would say that the large majority, when we walk into a school in Wisconsin or Texas or California or Washington, one of the things that I do often is I do these virtual assemblies all the time, right? So schools will invite me. They'll literally project me into a classroom. I'll do a 5 to 7, kind of positive psychology. Let's get you hyped. And part of my pitch is the wrong word, but it's an invitation. I like your word a lot
Yeah.
better, Peter. It's an invitation for them to surround themselves with goodness and positivity and stuff that will help them to build their confidence by inviting them to participate. And so schools, we create these posters for them that have cool sayings and that have a little QR code just like that. And kids just literally walk up, scan it with their phone. And like you said, they don't have to download anything. It's not an app. They don't have to create a username, no password. They just literally get a text on the phone that says, "Hey, welcome to School Pulse. How you doing?" Right? And
Yeah.
from that on, right, we begin our campaign with them. And anytime they want to opt out, they can opt out. My kids are like, "Hey, how do I opt out of this thing? Or how do I stop receiving these texts?" And we just say, "Hey, just send stop and you're done," And what we have found, and this part's really interesting. This part's really interesting too, because you may wonder about, well, what's the percentage of students that opts out, right? We got to remember, we're
Right.
texting kids twice a week for a year, plus more years if they stay on. We have less than 3% that opt out of our service. Think about that number.
Incredible.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's
Even
great.
though kids will ask us, I think because they want to know that there's autonomy, right? They want to know, like, okay, so I can exit this thing if I don't like it. And our
That's
answer is
right.
always, of course, like you can exit it if you want. But less than 3% do, which is kind of wild,
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it's so comforting to know that what you guys have built has so much success, and the fact that you've made it so easy to engage, and I guess you've made it easy to disengage, but you've made it so easy to engage that there is so little hesitancy for folks to not want to engage. In my experience, you're providing reflection question. I just thought that was so brilliant. It was just a little moment of my day, and I was able to just reflect a little bit on what was going on, and it was just a little moment that wasn't too interruptive, but it just shifted me just a little bit in order to get on with the rest of my day. So I know you guys have developed protocol around texting and intervention. You're very intentional about this. And I know when we first met, you used the word GT Mass. So help me understand what that is and how are you guys using functions like that as a clinical tool for engagement?
Yeah. So we have this, the team that engages with the students, right? We call them the PIT crew, which is positive interaction team. And we
Love
have
it.
this motto, right? Our motto is that every interaction is a positive interaction, right? Whether that interaction is wonderful and students are grateful and they're kind and they're jovial and they're fun, or whether their interaction is with us, meaning them engaging with us is rude, is mean, is inappropriate. We're still talking about teens, right? They may be, they say all sorts of things, but we come from this place, right, where every engagement, every interaction is positive because it allows us to respond to them in this way that we believe, right, that will yield positive outcomes, right? And so I use this acronym. It's honestly, it's not a fabulous. I mean, I wish I could come up with better, acronym letters, but GT Mass is kind of our
Yeah.
overall philosophy for how our team engages with students. And by the way, parents or even teachers use this acronym because we believe this will give you the very best chance to create a place that's safe and to get the highest outcomes possible with your interactions. But G stands for greet enthusiastically. So when somebody comes into our platform and responds with hi, or is this a real person, or what's this all about, or F you, whatever it is, we just respond with, man, we're so glad that you're here. Is everything okay? How are you? Right. So we greet people enthusiastically. T stands for thank you, like thank them for being there. Right. So we literally just say like, thank you so much for coming. Like, thank you for being here. Thanks for sending a message. Right. M stands for match, right? We match them where they are, right? So we don't, if a kid is sad, we don't try to immediately raise them up and come in like, why aren't you feeling better? No, we just match them where they are. Like they're happy, we're happy. If they're sad, if they're low, we match them right there where they are, right? A stands for ask questions, right? That's what we want to do. We want to be seen, like you said, we want to be heard. We have a desperate need of feeling understood, which is our next one. So MAS is seek to understand. And then the last one, the very last one is we suggest. And when we do that, we actually ask for permission to suggest as well. And so I'm telling you this, and even as a parent, right? I mean, I've parented 5 kids, am still parenting 5 kids, but that's kind of a good way. If you think about it, the GTMAS is all about building the relationship and making sure that that's a place where your kids will want to go. And then the very last one is, hey, I've got an idea for you, or I've got a suggestion, or I've got this resource, or I've got this cool video. I'd love for you to watch it, right? And so I think that that's a good guide, not just this is kind of what we train to do on our texting platform, but also as a parent, as a teacher, as an administrator who's attempting to connect with their students, to do the work before we jump to the solution or to the advice giving or to the suggestion giving. So anyways, we love that acronym. That's kind of the overall philosophy of our engagement.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So often I kind of walk into conversations and I so badly want to help. But your
Yeah.
your acronym is it's such a good one. It's such a great guide because I can kind of go in there and I can go in immediately knowing that I don't have to fix anything. I just have to come alongside you. And oftentimes that is the best way for me to engage with other people and have the relationships in my life and not have a rupture. Because so frequently I'll go in and I so badly want to help, but it actually makes things worse because they're not looking for that. And your guideline is actually a perfect example of being able to, meet somebody, meet them where they're at, and then just sort of poke around and see like what's going on. I know in your experience as a licensed clinical social worker, I want to ask you, what have you observed in sort of the efficacy of maybe text-based support opposed to or compared to traditional therapy?
I want to say that it's a little bit of apples and oranges, a little bit,
Sure.
a little bit. Obviously, and we certainly don't. We don't say that we are providing therapy to students over text. We definitely call ourselves kind of that positive psychology service. Our goal is to enhance, right? It's to provide resources and not to provide kind of this therapy, right? And so,
Sure.
in therapy, right, any person that I would meet with, we would create objectives, we would create goals, and then we would, get down to the nitty gritty and let's figure out how to get you to those goals, get you to those objectives. And that, of course, could involve, going through some really challenging things that have gone through your life. And that's not really the way. We do have students who come to us all the time and they say, well, I want to be a better student. I want to be a better athlete, or I want to get better grades, or I just don't want to get into trouble anymore. Or how do I have a better relationship? Or what do I do after I break up? And so we have lots of students who ask questions, and we have these fabulous resources that we can literally just drop right on a text to these students. But I think that that's kind of the difference is when you talk therapy, we're really talking about providing clinical advice, right? And in a text-based service, our goal is really to provide those resources. And more importantly, our goal is to encourage, facilitate, and do everything in our power to connect those kids, those children, number one, to their parents or guardians or whoever that primary network is, to the professionals at the school, and then, of course, to other local resources. That's our goal. Like, we want those kids to connect where they are. Like, we're not the solution per se. We're not but we're very interested in providing them with the kinds of tools that help to connect them where they are with the people around them. That's really important for us. And all of our interventions are framed around that concept of we're not the solution per se, but we're going to do everything in our power to provide you lots of support, resources, love, care, but then let's connect you right there where you are so that we can strengthen your connection to these people that are around you all the time.
Right. Really kind of giving some guidance to bridge to somewhere else. Yeah.
Yes.
So I know you guys are collecting data, both sort of evaluating maybe the school environment, and I know you're collecting data that's evaluating their sentiment score. But I want to ask you, are you collecting data that maybe shows the correlation between mental health and academic success? And how does that sort of show up in School Pulse?
Yeah, so we do 4 specific questionnaires, right? So we measure academic effort, we measure confidence, we measure kind of general wellness, and then we also measure the student's perception of their school atmosphere, right? And then we provide those 4 little metrics to the school, right, to provide that pulse, which I think is valuable for schools. Hopefully it informs their interventions. So the 4 questionnaires, we actually ask the students those questions every other Friday. We have one of these questionnaires every other Friday where we try to get that information and we provide it to the school generally as general data. The sentiment score is more of an algorithm that we've created that takes the actual text that the students are writing, my life is miserable, my parents just divorced, right? And if a student wrote that, even right there on that text, there would be a little thing right at the bottom that says sentiment score -9, right? And then as students engage in that text chat, we can actually measure how that sentiment moves as they're communicating about their problem. And then hopefully as we're attempting to make it better, right? So if they end the conversation with thank you so much, that was so helpful, right? And that ranks as a sentiment score of 7 or 8, right? So that's what we do is we take these sentiment scores, right, on a graph and we just average it out. And what we've noticed is as they engage, right, we kind of get this upward trajectory line. That's kind of our sentiment score. We don't have specific data that makes that connection, but we are grounded in that. So what I mean by that is I think the evidence is absolutely clear. We certainly don't need to rewrite that book, whether you're talking about, a student's like improved social standing or social situation or their level of engagement, let's say in activities or clubs or sports activities, or
Sure.
specifically with positive psychology, right? The understanding that when a student or an adult, by that matter, when an individual is happier, right,
Right.
that they score higher, their attendance is improved, that their ability to learn is improved, right? Their creativity is up by 31%. So we base our program on that data, right? That says when people are happier, right? When they feel better, more hopeful, more optimistic, they are more resilient, they have more emotional muscle, and they behave and perform better. And so our goal is to just be a vehicle, right, that promotes that. And of course, we're basing this on this data that's now been proven over and over and over and over again. So that's kind of
Sure.
how that's why I say we're grounded in evidence, or we're evidence based, because we have
Right.
other ways of measuring, but that's really kind of where we're basing that.
Yeah.
It's always a challenge with prevention, right? It's challenging to measure prevention, right? It's challenging to measure something that didn't happen, right? And so
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's always kind of one of the challenges of doing what we do. But we try to provide metrics to the schools that could potentially inform current interventions, current efficacy of their intervention, and then future, of course, future direction for whatever it is that they're looking to do.
Yeah, yeah, and I know you guys have a lot of really wonderful content on your website too that sort of goes into this correlation between mental health, feeling good about yourself, feeling happier, and just academic success as well.
Absolutely.
I know at the beginning of our conversation, we talked a little bit about parents and faculty and how they're a part of this equation, engaging with the students themselves. So I want to ask you, how are you getting maybe the families or faculty involved in some of the conversations that are being done in School Pulse?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. One, and I kind of talked about that tier one, right, which we kind of is
Right.
our email campaign, right? And this is just one of the very simple ways, right, that when we walk into a school or a school can immediately begin this campaign in an effortless way. They don't have to maintain it. They don't have to deal with it. We deal with it. We mess with it. We deal with the whole thing. But they literally just opt the parents in to our email service that goes out only once a week, right? We realize that there are lots of emails. We don't want to burden or spam anybody. But each week we deliver what we call is our student success videos, right? And these videos span everything from being respectful, on using AI appropriately, to becoming a better student, to dealing with burnout, setting goals, being happier, making friendships. Like, these are the factors that we know will impact kids having a successful experience in school. That's what we want to have. But the reason why we go to parents is twofold. Number one is because we truly want to be transparent in all of our content. Like, there's no weirdness, no secrecy. But number two, because we want to give parents an actual tool that they could
Yes.
utilize with their own kids. Like, here's a short video, right? Not long. It's 7 to 8 minutes, 7 to 10 minutes at times, right? That's, I think, presented in a way that's fun, that's engaging, that's interactive, that you can show your kid. Maybe your student is struggling with, maybe they want to be a little bit more confident around their friends. Maybe they want to be a better athlete. Maybe they want to become a better student. Maybe they want to learn like
Right.
better testing skills. Well, we've created videos for all of those things. And we literally just deliver them to parents with the hope that they can then, if they want to, right, if they approve, they can share it
Right.
with their own student. But that's one of the very simple ways that we utilize this way to engage, involve, and provide some content to parents that they can utilize themselves. And usually schools will include all their staff in that same email too, because
Right.
they want our approach, right, to be something that they're kind of adopting into the school instead of just kind of being this little thing that we're just using over here in this corner with these students. We just have
Right.
provided a really easy way to be kind of a big solution to school, to parents, to students, and of course to
Right.
staff as well. And in addition to that, we invite parents to opt into our texting service as well. Like, so
Yes.
we haven't just intervened with students who are actively suicidal or struggling. We're talking about parents themselves who
Yeah.
have gone through divorce, who have themselves been admitted to mental health hospitals, who are themselves dealing with their own depression or substance abuse or whatever it is. And our team just provides that same live support, not just to the students, but to the parents themselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of what a wonderful tool that must be in order to equip the family with really good data, but also it must spawn some really great questions that can bring the family together in right ways. You know, I kind of think of my own experience in high school, and I can think of how different that might have gone if my family knew a little bit more of what I was going through, but I was too afraid to share. But a program like yours just might be that bridge for them to create a really smart intervention that might have, you know, changed something in my life and just given me a little bit more social confidence in order to navigate, or just an understanding, you know, from my family itself. So I can imagine that being a really wonderful tool for families to engage with and for students to feel supported in times when they need.
Yeah, I think we've really tried to make it easy, right? I think that that's one of the reasons why we've gone through text, right? Is we just want to eliminate as many barriers as possible, right? I mean, we talk to students
Yes.
all the time, and one of our questions, you know, when students talk to us about, you know, they're struggling or they're dealing with a friend issue or there's drama happening or they're really anxious or they just had a panic attack or, you know, and one of our questions is always number one, do your parents know? Have you ever spoken to them about
Mm,
this? Or
yeah.
are you familiar with the counselor at your school? You know, do you know Miss So and so over there? She's fabulous. Like, and we know because students tell us all the time, it's really the walk from a classroom or a hallway into the counselor's office is a very long walk. Like, and kids don't want to do it. And our service just
Yeah.
provides, like you said, this really simple and easy bridge, right? We tap them on the
Right.
shoulder. Hey, how are you? Man, I'm like really sad. Oh my gosh, so happy you responded. How you doing? How are things? Thank you so much for telling us that. What's going on, right? Oh, I just did
Mhm.
this and blah, 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 blah. Are your parents aware, right? Have you had a chance to talk to your counselor? No, I would never do that. I don't want them to blah, 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 right? And so we really just become this easy place, this easy bridge. They can easily and privately, right, communicate with our team, and then we can provide some support and obviously do
Right.
everything in our power to encourage those students to connect with their loved ones there.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. Well, I know we are coming towards the end of our time, but I do want to ask you, for educators, clinicians, or school leaders that are interested in implementing this program, where can they start and what advice might you offer them to make maybe a big impact as they implement them into their own school?
Man, I love that. I mean, you can reach us at SchoolPulse.org. That's our website. You can reach out to me personally at Iuri, and I'll spell out my name. It's Iuri. It's kind of a strange name. It's Iuri at SchoolPulse.org. That's the easiest way. But a great way, I think, for you as an administrator, and this is going to maybe sound a little cliche, right? But honestly, it just starts with you, right? We got to start somewhere, right? We start where we are, use what you have, do what you can. And even if you don't end up, you know, utilizing our wonderful suite of just services that we have created for schools like you, but it just starts with you. I tell people this all the time, like the moment you walk into the room, you impact the dynamic in that room. Like it's just true. Like whether we like it, dislike it, whether we think we're a person of influence or not, it doesn't matter because the reality is we are like, and so it just begins as a leader, begins with your staff, begins with your engagement, interaction with students, with your relationships with students. And if you want to make a wonderful impact in your school, and by the way, a wonderful impact in your life, just make your work environment a better place and you'll be happier. The students there will be happier. And whether you're using a program like ours or just coming up with some really fun ideas or even kind of peer-to-peer type support groups, which we've created one as well, those are great ways to just overall raise the tide at your school. And you can totally do it. Like, just don't ever think or believe that you can't, because that's ridiculous. It honestly is. Like, it's just untrue.
Yeah. So good. So good. Well, I'll just repeat this once more from our listeners. You can learn more at schoolpulse.org. They've got information on there in order to demo on your phone. There's information about sort of the products and its services and some of the benefits there. But for today, Iuri, this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for joining me today.
What a pleasure, Peter. Thanks, man.
I want to thank you, our listeners, for taking the time to join us. You can follow us on social media at TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and more at Behavioral Health Today. And if you like our show, give us a 5 stars and leave us a review. It helps our show get discovered and share the valuable insights in each episode. As always, the resources for this episode and an archive of all of our other episodes can be found on our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. And we look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today. We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.